Steam curls off a mountain waterfall as a young woman stands completely naked, trembling, her skin flushed beet red, not from cold, but from the absolute mortification of being carried like a bride over the shoulder of a massive, bearded barbarian warlord. She screams, she curses, she threatens to kill him with her bare hands. He laughs, not cruelly, but with the warm, rumbling chuckle of a man who genuinely cannot understand why she is so upset. Her feverish body goes limp in his arms, and for one fleeting, terrifying second, her pride crumbles into something far more dangerous: vulnerability. "You're as light as a feather," he murmurs. Her eyes flutter shut. The waterfall roars, and somewhere in the back of her shattered mind, a thought she will never admit to having forms. Why does his face look different without the beard? Welcome back to the channel. I'm your host, and today we're uncovering the secrets of episode 1 of 𝙒𝙃𝘼𝙉𝙆𝙎. Picture this: a war-torn frontier where two civilizations glare at each other across a scarred battlefield. On one side, the disciplined, honor-obsessed Western kingdom of 𝙒𝙃𝘼𝙉𝙏, a land so barren and resource-starved that its nobles would weep at the sight of a properly marbled steak. On the other, the so-called barbarian Eastern horde, led by the great tribal chief 𝙒𝙃𝘼𝙏, a man whose people inhabit a lush, dragon-infested paradise that would make any Western noble weep for entirely different reasons. Into this powder keg steps Seraphina, a female knight of extraordinary skill and absolutely zero chill. She's a woman who fights in a world that tells her she shouldn't, driven by a pride so fierce she'd rather die than accept mercy from an enemy. And die she tries to, because on her very first morning as 𝙒𝙃𝘼𝑆 prisoner, she wakes up in his bed, naked, with zero memory of the night before, and immediately assumes the worst. "Give me a sword," she demands, fully prepared to commit ritual suicide rather than live with the shame of, well, whatever she thinks happened. 𝙒𝙃𝘼, for his part, is just standing there in his own bedroom, bare-chested, genuinely confused about why this tiny human is so upset. Because here's the thing, nothing happened. He accidentally dosed her with a paralytic poison, a blood-clotting agent he uses on wounded warriors, and just let her sleep it off, alone, in his bed, while he slept elsewhere. But try explaining that to a woman whose entire identity is built on the concept of knightly honor. Spoiler, you cannot. She does not listen. She never listens. And that, dear viewers, is the ignition point of one of the most absurdly compelling enemies-to-lovers setups in recent anime history. Okay, so after the catastrophic misunderstanding of the wedding proposal, and yes, this man literally proposes marriage to a woman he captured in battle, because apparently that's just how Eastern hospitality works. 𝙒𝙃𝘼𝙏 decides the best way to handle his furious, half-naked prisoner is to feed her. Not bread, not gruel, not the sad, ration bar prison food she's probably expecting. No. He brings out a mountain of meat so large it has its own gravitational field. Seraphina stares at it like it personally offended her ancestors. This isn't just any meat. This is the kind of luxury her starving homeland hasn't seen in generations. Her stomach growls with the force of a small earthquake. Her pride screams louder. And for a solid 30 seconds, we watch a woman wage war against her own digestive system. "I would rather starve than accept charity from a barbarian," she declares, moments before her belly emits a sound that can only be described as a war drum calling soldiers to battle. Because, naturally, a knight's pride is no match for an empty stomach and perfectly seasoned dragon meat. Wait, did I say dragon? Yes, I did. While Seraphina is busy having an existential crisis over the food, 𝙒𝙃𝘼𝙏 casually mentions that the meat she's devouring, the meat she is currently inhaling with the enthusiasm of someone who hasn't eaten in a day, comes from a dragon. Not a metaphorical dragon. Not a dragon snake or a dragon lizard. An actual, fire-adjacent, flying beast of legend. The same creature her homeland considers an untouchable myth. She freezes. Her chopsticks hover mid-air. The juice of the dragon meat drips onto the table like the ticking of a countdown clock. "Delicious, isn't it?" 𝙒𝙃𝘼𝙏 asks, grinning. And the look on Seraphina's face, that beautiful, conflicted, "I hate this man, but this is the best thing I've ever tasted" expression, is the exact moment this show hooks you by the soul and refuses to let go. But the food is only the appetizer. The main course? 𝙒𝙃𝘼𝙏 takes her outside, not to a dungeon, not to an interrogation room. He takes her to a waterfall, a towering, thundering, impossibly majestic cascade that looks like something ripped from a Studio Ghibli fever dream. The Eastern Territory isn't the wasteland she imagined. It's alive, teeming, verdant. Creatures she's never seen, massive serpentine dragons, lounge in the distance like oversized, slightly intimidating house cats. And then 𝙒𝙃𝘼𝙏 drops the bomb. Take off your clothes. Cue the record scratch. Cue Seraphina's face achieving a shade of red previously unknown to science. Cue the narrator's internal screaming. But, plot twist, he just means bathing. This is a co-ed culture. Modesty is a foreign concept. And Seraphina, the woman who once tried to commit seppuku over a misunderstanding, now has to choose between hypothermia and nudity in front of her captor. She chooses survival, barely. And the waterfall scene, the waterfall scene, is where the show transforms from a comedy of errors into something genuinely breathtaking. The camera lingers on Seraphina's expression as she watches the cascade for the first time. Her eyes, those sharp, guarded warrior's eyes, go soft, just for a moment. Just long enough for us to see the girl beneath the armor. Because 𝙒𝙼𝙏 isn't showing her this because he wants to gloat. He's showing her because he wants her to see his world. And that is dangerous. Not because of dragons or poison or war, but because understanding is the first step toward empathy. And empathy is the one weapon her pride can't defend against. The fever hits without warning. One moment, Seraphina is standing in the stream, defiant and shivering. The next, her knees buckle. The poison, the paralytic agent 𝙒𝙼𝙏 used, it's still in her system, and the cold water pushes her body past its limit. She collapses, and 𝙒𝙼𝙏 catches her. Not with a joke, not with a smug remark about barbarian hospitality. He catches her the way you catch something precious. Carefully, completely, without hesitation. His massive arms wrap around her small frame. Her head falls against his chest. His heartbeat is steady. Hers is racing. She tries to push him away. Her hands land on his chest and simply stay there, weak, trembling, unable or unwilling to let go. "You're as light as a feather," he says again, and this time the words land differently. Softer, almost tender, and he looks down at her. The waterfall thunders around them. The world narrows to this single suspended moment. Two enemies, one broken boundary, and the terrifying, undeniable pull of something neither of them has a name for yet. Her lips part. A question forms. A confession almost escapes. But her eyes close before it can, and she goes limp against him, feverish and fragile, and so far from the unbreakable knight she pretends to be. 𝙒𝙼𝙏 carries her back through the forest, past the dragons, past the waterfalls, past the lush wilderness that she now knows exists. And the expression on his face tells us everything his words won't. This man isn't her captor anymore. Maybe he never was. Maybe he was always something else entirely, and she just wasn't ready to see it. The episode ends with Seraphina unconscious in his arms, and 𝙒𝙏𝙏 murmuring something we can't quite hear. A promise, perhaps, or a prayer, or simply the quiet acknowledgement of a man who has just realized that the woman he wants to make his bride is going to be the most difficult, most infuriating, most extraordinary conquest of his entire life. Now let's talk about what's really happening beneath the surface of this episode. Because 𝙒𝙃 memory is playing a much deeper game than Grumpy Knight meets Himbo Warlord. First, the foreshadowing. Watch 𝙒𝙏𝙏's hands. Throughout the entire episode, every time Seraphina is in danger, when she collapses from the poison, when she nearly drowns in the waterfall, when the fever strikes, his hands are already moving. He doesn't react. He anticipates. That's not the behavior of a man who just captured a random prisoner. That's the behavior of someone who has been watching her for a long time. Which brings me to my theory. 𝙒𝙏𝙏 doesn't just know of Seraphina. He knows her fighting style, her weaknesses. The fact that she's been fighting with a fever since the battle. A battle where she was wounded and never treated it properly. He didn't capture her by chance. He chose her. And the wedding proposal wasn't a joke or a cultural misunderstanding. It was a man who has been waiting for the right moment to bring someone specific into his world. And that moment finally arrived when she fell in battle at his feet. The title of the series is 𝙒𝙃 memory, not lost memory, not forgotten memory. As in, something existed, something important, and someone deliberately refused to give it a name. What if Seraphina and 𝙒𝙏𝙏 have met before? What if there's a shared past that neither of them can, or will, acknowledge? What if the box mentioned in the ending theme, the one that holds something precious and unknown, is the memory of a connection they both buried before the war tore their worlds apart? I don't have proof, but I have instincts. And my instincts are telling me that this love story didn't start with a battlefield capture. It started a long, long time ago. If that cliffhanger made your heart do a backflip, do me a quick solid and smash that like button. It takes 1 second and keeps the anime dream alive. Drop your wildest theory in the comments. I want to hear your takes on 𝙒𝙏𝙏's true intentions, Seraphina's mysterious past, and whether dragon meat would actually be worth the existential crisis. Hit subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll catch you in the next recap.